You're listening to Family Discipleship Podcast, a podcast of training the church. Woohoo!
This is Adam Griffin, and I'm here with my co-host first, Mrs. Cassie Bryant. Cassie, where did you and your friends used to all hang out when you were in 8th grade? What was the place?
I'll let you guess.
Was it the mall?
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah, that and like the roller skating rink.
Okay. Wichita Falls Mall?
Yeah.
What was the name of the mall out there?
Sykes Center.
That sounds like an insane asylum.
I was going to say, are you sure that wasn't inpatient rehab? It's okay if it was.
No judgment
Center
here.
Mall.
Yeah.
Center was spelt with an S because we really loved alliteration.
Cool.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Still why I
Also
spell
here,
center
not
wrong.
mocking Cassie that hard, but kind of a little bit, is my wife, Chelsea Griffin. Chelsea, same question. Where'd you and your 8th grade friends hang?
Me and my 8th grade friends, it sounds bad. We hung out in the street. We were always in the street.
Oh.
We were always setting up a game of street basketball, street football.
That's awesome.
We were always doing hood rat things in the street.
You were living on the streets.
We were throwing M80s down the storm drains.
This explains your love for rap.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of things could help explain some of my misspent youth. No, we were in the street all the time. We just go out to the street. There we'd be, and we'd come up with a plan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
What about you, Adam?
The streets.
Yeah, what were you up to?
I didn't have friends in 8th grade, so let's not talk about it.
Lutheran private school. Is that
that's
where?
where we hung out. We hung out at school. We did. That was probably it. We'd walk, to and from a store near school.
Well,
That was probably
you
in
lived
8th grade.
far from a lot of your classmates, didn't you?
After 8th grade, yeah. Like my
Okay.
freshman year, I
hard.
commuted about 30, 45 minutes to school. So we didn't have much hang time until we drove, that has to wait till our next episode. This age is when relationships become important, but maybe you don't have all the power in the world to hang out with each other like you'd like to.
Yeah.
You don't have all those resources that come from jobs and driver's licenses. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This was a stage though for me that where mischief suddenly became, instead of something you got in trouble for, it became the fun thing you try to do all the time. But it was with your peers, right? M80s was a big part of my childhood. Smoke bombs, M80s.
I was like, I don't know what M80s are.
That
It's
little
like a
pieces,
little
dynamite.
It's like a little firecracker, but it's like one little bomb. And this is messed up. But I remember sometimes. Yeah, never mind. I'm not going to share this.
I was not going to share what we
Look
used
at
to do with
that filter
M80s, but it
kicking
did
in.
involve living things.
Yeah, so did ours.
Okay.
But sometimes if you found a dead something, you could blow it up.
Person?
This is making
dark
my
is this?
materialism and consumerism just see something.
Yeah, Cassie's
so
at the
much
mall with her
better.
friends don't you think it's cat? And we're out
at those Doc Martens.
Chelsea and I are out blowing stuff up under the street lamps. That sounds about right.
We were waiting for people to go to sleep so we could toilet paper and egg and all of those
We
things.
did toilet paper.
Yeah.
That was more like high school.
Now they call it rolling. I always called it TPing. Did you guys call it rolling?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get started. Let's jump into this together. We're going to talk about discipleship, not our misspent youth, not our mischief. Although, man, Lord have mercy. If any of our kids turned out like me, we'd be in big trouble. My poor mom, my poor dad. Sorry. If you guys are listening, I'm sorry for what I put you through.
This is how your mom became a saint and a prayer warrior.
That's true. She had to. Yeah.
Yeah, it was formative for her.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's going on? 12 to 14-year-olds. What's going on developmentally? Cassie, what are they kind of growing in? What are they thinking about? What's going on for a 12 to 14-year-old? I know it's a lot.
It's so much. I mean, you think they grow a lot when they're babies and toddlers. And then this stage, I mean, they're going to grow at different paces, obviously. It's like my oldest already has friends who are like grown women. And she's still more on the girl side of things, but it just happens overnight. It's crazy. And they'll sleep 13 hours and then wake up and they're completely different human. It's a different human in your house.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what happened? It's just, but also developmentally, they're forming so many opinions and interests and hobbies, and they're experimenting and trying things out to see if they enjoy something or if they like, I want to try art or music or theater, all those kind of things, which is so fun because a lot of middle schools will let them have all those electives. So, I mean, it's really explored. I mean, they're really exploring a lot at this stage. And, in some ways it's kind of like preschool in terms of learning to regulate your emotions in that kind of exploration phase, but it's so much more mature because of their age.
Yeah, that's good. Chelsea, anything else you can think of? Our medical expert? What's happening with these kids?
Well, as a medical expert, I can tell you this is when you could start to get pregnant.
Oh.
Just kidding. I mean, that's real, but girls starting their periods, those kind of like, there's a stage and age where kids really separate by gender, and boys play with boys, girls play with girls. And then around this age, there's like an integration that happens where you can be friends with some of the opposite sex, but then there's also like this like awakening of like, okay, but maybe I want a boyfriend or a girlfriend, at this age, those kinds of things. And just the big influence that peers begin to have. One, that you have more time away from your parents when you're this age.
Right.
So you have time to sit around and like bounce your knucklehead ideas off your knucklehead friends and all decide that these are great ideas, great thoughts, super wise, that kind of stuff. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I think the word we haven't said yet, but you've danced around it, is puberty, right? Like menstruation, part of puberty. I can remember when it was like who has armpit hair and who doesn't. That age, that stage is like deodorant is getting introduced, and it needed to be. For some kids, they need it and don't even know about it. It's growth spurts. You could not see a kid for the summer. When they come back, they're 6 inches taller than the last time you saw them. For boys, this is even maybe the start of like voice changing. And because of those things, I think it's also the onset of things like body image awareness. People are more aware of how they have developed compared to others and at what pace from others. I don't know if girls talked about that stuff or if they knew that about each other. They're looking at each other's bodies, but boys are very aware of like how tall people are, whether somebody else has hit puberty or not was a big deal. And then some of what Cassie talked about forming ideas and opinions. It's certainly the time when kind of they develop their own form of ethics and morals, maybe adopted from their parents, but also adopted from their peers and from the culture. They start to form what do they think is right and wrong. And in that they form both in their body and in their morals, then an identity, like who am I? And in that, there's also this push for independence, right? And to a 12 to 14-year-old, independence means I get to do what I want. So where do I get to do what I want, or how do I get to do what I want? And then like Chelsea said, it's also the onset of romantic relationships, often for not necessarily for every kid, but certainly in this age group, they're going to be aware and more aware of romantic things happening. And peers their age are now influencing culture, right? This is the age where you might start to see a 14-year-old pop star, a YouTube star. It's they're kind of taking over that youth culture at this age. And so they think they know what's cool more than their parents know what's cool. And then in your homes, this might also be the time when the kids start to desire their own privacy. They want their own room, even though they've never had their own room. They have conflict with authority because authority is no longer helpful. It's what stands in the way of my independence, of me getting what I want. So this age it can be really intimidating for parents. It can be, challenging maybe is the right word, but I don't believe it's without opportunity. In fact, Paul David Tripp, when we had him on the show, and he wrote this great book called The Age of Opportunity about this age, and the next one about being a teenager. And he called it the age of opportunity because of the lack of optimism in parents around this stage. But there is a lot of opportunity for discipleship. Chelsea, what are some of those spiritual opportunities you think for a 12 to 14-year-old? What are parents looking at? What should we be taking advantage of?
I think they have, for a lot of kids that age, like a newfound opportunity to practice community the way that their parents do, right? And so like at our church, this means starting to go to student ministry. You might be in a small group, have the same leader, whereas like kids ministry for elementary kids, you go and there are different volunteers each week. It might not look like that kind of relationship, right? It's like I'm in here while my parents are at church. Some people will accidentally call it childcare, that kind of thing. Whereas like when they're moving up a little bit in age in the church, there's an opportunity for them to see what it looks like to do something like accountability or discipleship, going to Bible study, kind of taking more of the ownership and more of just the onus of like, this is what it means to follow Christ. And I think for my friends who have kids a little bit older than ours, and just from what I've seen in the church, this is also a place where they have the opportunity to actually practice their faith in the way that when our kids are really young, they could share, they can tell the truth and do some of those things. But kids this age are faced with so many complex social, moral dilemmas.
Big time.
All day, every day. One kid's getting picked on, one kid's getting left out. What are you going to do? Kids are talking bad about somebody. Kids are going to play a mean prank on somebody. Those kinds of things where kids have an opportunity on their own without their parents' oversight to choose wicked or good, to choose something that honors God or doesn't. So they have an actual opportunity to exercise their faith. Before, we're trying to form the faith in the first place, but now they can exercise it and say, I believe God knows what's best, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I love that point, because when we're talking about discipling this age group and we're talking about faith formation, often when we talk about sharing our faith, I think the image that comes in a parent's mind is about teaching kids Bible stories. And how am I going to get these kids familiar with Bible stories? This is the age where we're talking about, this is rubber meets the road on discipleship. Can my kid be in a situation and say, because I am a Christian, this is how I'll respond? Or because I'm a Christian, this is how I'll initiate? Or how does my faith shape my identity? Who am I in Christ, and who am I in this situation because of Christ? And so definitely when we're talking about discipleship at this stage, it's not just, are you continuing to share characteristics of God and Bible stories? Oh, so there's certainly a part. It is, how does your faith look in practice? What does it look like as you're different than the world? Cassie, what do you think about discipling this age?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of asking them questions. It's kind of, in the earlier ages, they're asking you questions.
Yeah.
And then it's like all of a sudden they kind of get quiet. I don't know if you notice that when you pick them up from school, you start getting the one-word answers, and it's kind of harder to tease things out of them. And so I think it's really learning to listen when they talk, and then it's learning to be a good question asker at this stage, especially around family discipleship, and kind of really modeling for them, like, I care what you think about this, and you're at the age where you're forming your own thoughts. And so I want to hear those as your parent, as someone who, you know, who's shaping that. And I just don't want to tell you what to believe. I want to hear what you believe. Like, what do you think about, is God good? Do you believe God's good? Why or why not? And so I think this is a really sweet stage for that that's kind of starting to begin now. In our family, we're reading the book of Acts, and it's like, talking about, like, do miracles still happen? Does the Spirit and how the Spirit works and all those things. And it's so different even from my 7-year-old to our 11-year-old, and the way that we're interacting around the text. And a lot of it is just like kind of teasing out from the older child's perspective.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there about questions. That is, Chelsea, in our house right now, when I think about discipling our 12-year-old, questions are a big part of it, right? Not just our questions, but like Cassie's saying, the kind of questions he's asking when we create space, a safe space for him to ask them. Like, what does discipleship look like for us right now with our 12-year-old?
So, I mean, we're still doing our family devotionals all together as a family. And there are times, though, where we ask him to help lead, like take something that he learned at student ministry or retreat and say, share with us, like, one thing you took away from the retreat, but share it with all of us, that kind of thing. But, we're still going through the Bible together and talking, but in a way, kind of like Cassie, I would say my plans get derailed easily, and I'm glad for it. So, like, the other night, I really wanted to talk through the story of Jesus weeping about Lazarus's death, because I wanted to talk to the boys about just what it means to have these emotions. And I want to talk about this. And then it went so far off course from that. I cannot even.
In the best way.
It was great. Yeah. They just started asking all these questions about, like, whether or not everyone technically deserves a chance to hear the gospel. What happens with people who haven't ever heard it? What happens to people with cognitive dysfunction that couldn't understand it if they wanted to? They had tons of questions, and it really had to do with the character of God. And we're always loving those questions. We do our devos at night as a family, and I think sometimes it goes on long because our kids don't really want to, like, go to bed, and they want to keep the conversation going. And again, it's like, tricks on them. So do I.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, we're getting a lot of good questions. And then our oldest son is in classical education, and they're reading some, like, deep spiritual books. So I think he's getting some questions and ideas from that he's kind of bringing to us a little bit.
Yeah, we should also say, as far as our parenting goes, this is certainly not universal, but this is also the age at which, like, it is frequent that we go to bed before our kids do. Sometimes.
We want to.
Yeah, I definitely want to. Yeah. So I would say
too.
some parents and some families would be like, well, how do you still do devos at night? It's like, well, sometimes the kids are kind of putting me to bed. But before I go to bed, we're going to pray together. We're going to read together. We're going to sing together. We're going to pause whatever they're watching or whatever they're doing and say, hey, let's talk real quick. Dad's going to go to bed. It's also a stage. One of the sweetest things about the stage for parents, if you're almost to the stage, is the stage where you can leave your kids at home and they could take care of themselves, like
It's
this increased
the best.
responsibility. I mean, my frequency of getting to a gym to work out has exponentially increased since our kids were old enough to like take care of themselves. Our Chelsea's always worked really hard at helping our kids be independent, making their own lunches for school, doing their just coming for us to sign their homework, but they're making sure they're on top of it, doing their own laundry. Those things are true, but now it's upped a little bit more. At this age, it's like, no, this is the expectation. You're a man. You can do this. Chelsea, that's a lot of the good stuff I'm sharing there. A lot of the discipleship, maybe the picture. It's not always glowing, but there is something really beautiful about this opportunity. What are the new kind of maybe growing temptations that this stage is going to face? This generation in particular, we're talking about right now, 12 to 14-year-olds right now. What are the temptations that are maybe suddenly upon them or insidiously, slowly growing upon them? What are they dealing with?
All of it. All the social media stuff, of course, comes to mind of either having it secretly, if their parents have said you can't have it, the misuse of it, inappropriate content, stuff like that, whether that's through social media or not, but just exploring stuff that is kind of outside the bounds of what their parents have said and going, I want to look into this, but I want to do it covertly. I don't, the kind of things you want to do in the dark, as Jesus would say, For a lot of kids, this is their first introduction to drugs or alcohol. So there's a lot of those types of things, I think, and just rebellion for the sake of rebellion that maybe didn't exist before, but this idea of like just starting to feel like, those parents, they don't know what's cool and we should do whatever they say is good. We're going to do the other thing.
Yeah. Sex, drugs, alcohol, smoking, sneaking around, hiding, technology, secret relationships, access to things, social media. I mean, this is that stage where all the things that we would say, even that are innocuous, like they're not inherently wrong, like access to the internet, that a kid at this age is going to be tempted to misuse what is maybe amoral, right? Like it's not inherently wrong, but the kid at this age is going to go, how I might be able to use that to do something I shouldn't. And either in shame or in delight in sin will be tempted to hide that from their parents. Not that kids younger than this don't hide things. I think the stakes just, or maybe the ability, the access, all those things just kind of, they continue to climb. And this generation has a lot of struggles before it. Cassie, in light of all that, how do we keep having good relationships with our kids? How do we maintain healthy parent-child relationships where we have a safe place to talk when maybe they want our voice to be a little quieter than it used to be? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, so I'm going to backtrack even to the last question, like, for girls, so much comparison, envy.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, this is the age where it's like, if I don't have this brand of whatever, or this bag or this water bottle, because it's filtered all the way down to water bottles. It feels like
you don't want to get Chelsea on her water bottle soapbox, by the way.
Yeah. Their relationships are on the line. Like they feel threatened if they don't have. And so it's all that to say, so that's kind of one of the sin struggles, I think, at this stage. But I think it's easy to lose sight that we were that way once.
Right.
So I think one of the ways to maintain relationship and even authority is to have compassion. And, the same compassion you have when your 2-year-old falls or your 4-year-old, does something a 4-year-old do. It's like to expect them to be any different than, that's how we were when we were 12, 13, 14. Yeah. I wanted what I wanted. I was hiding things from my parents or whatever. And so it's just good to remember our own preteen, early teen years, and then let that kind of stoke up compassion in our own hearts for our kids so that when we do have to have the hard conversation about them not getting what they want or having consequences for, sin, bad choices, whatever it is, if it's coming from that place, there's this relationship there rather than this authoritarian. You don't want to just be the obstacle to them getting what they want. You want them to understand that it's because it's for their good. So I think that compassion just plays a huge part in that and helping. And they don't always want to hear it at first, but then I've even found with my oldest, which I know she's not quite 12 yet, so it could get, harder, probably will. But it almost always comes back around to, I know you just want what's right. I know you want what's best for me. I know you want what God wants for me. And so it might be 24, 48 hours after the conversation, but it does circle back usually to that. Really, there's repair where there's been maybe, disrepair. So I think that's a big key to maintaining relationship, but not letting that compassion compromise your values and what you believe God has called you to as a family. And I think that's where we can get in trouble. It's like, well, I'm going to get them the iPhone, or I'm going to let them on that social media platform, or I'm going to give in to the materialism because I just don't want them to be the only one. Well, I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast before. It's like, well, they need to learn to be the only one sometimes.
That's right.
Yeah.
How else are they going to grow up in the world if they're not going to ever be the only one that doesn't get drunk at a party, or the only one that doesn't, I don't know, make compromising ethical decisions in the workplace in their 30s. And so they need to learn to feel that other than-ness. And we've got great episodes on that from Jen Wilkin, and you've talked about that a lot, Adam. So I think where we have these little opportunities that are low risk, like a water bottle or whatever it is, then I think we have the opportunity to show them, like, I love you, I have compassion, but we're not going to compromise here because this is the value.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about the compassion. And I think it is so important to kids this age to feel heard.
Big time.
Yes.
To feel considered. Some people our age in their 40s growing up, I don't remember a lot of kids feeling like they had that with their parents. It can be so tempting as a parent when a 12-year-old child tells you something that is the biggest deal to them that happened at school over a boy or over clothes or a water bottle. And it is so tempting, especially with your spouse, to kind of laugh at that, mock that, belittle that, kind of minimize that. Like, isn't that so stupid? And that, I really think, just closes a door between us and those kids. The same way we want to be heard, we want to be considered, so do our kids. And they're just people. And like you're saying, like that's where they are. Today's hard because they don't have the same water bottle other girls do. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's think about the way Jesus met people and the way he considered their story and their situation. And you just don't see him mocking like that.
Totally.
But I think it's super important that our kids feel dignified by this. I don't have girls, but I have boys. And I think it's really important to our oldest son to feel like we respect him. Not that we look up to him, not that we're not an authority, but that we're respecting him as a young man, that we're treating him, talking to him in a respectful way, not in a belittling way. And I see him respond so well to that, especially with other adults in our life. When they treat him respectfully, I think he finds that so dignifying, and he kind of steps up to the plate, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a huge deal in the way we listen to our kids at this stage.
I just feel like I need to confess that my middle daughter does have the water bottle, and it's because it sat in the church lost and found for 3 months.
So somebody at Northway, come get your water bottle.
Yeah, if someone at Northway sees it sitting around.
What's the brand? What's the water bottle?
It's a Stanley water bottle. Here's the funny
Stanley
part.
Cup.
Funny part is it was all moldy, so we had to buy a new lid. She, with her money, buy a new lid and straw. The second funny thing is she can't fill it all the way up because it's too heavy.
Oh, but she looks cool holding
when it's
it.
on the table, she moves it to the floor because she can't see us at dinner if it's sitting on the table.
God bless her.
Because it's so big.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just felt like I needed to confess that.
Yeah, I think the two words that you guys are kind of dancing around are like not to be and what to be. Is not to be dismissive, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not looking at your kid and going, hey, you're making a big deal. It's not a big deal. Or like when they have these big emotions about a breakup or somebody not interested or they didn't get the thing, to go, you'll understand when you're older. That's a dismissive response, right? But what to be in that moment is to be empathetic. Like, I remember what it was like to think my whole world was rooted on this. And so instead of saying you'll understand when you're older, what I need to do is understand right now what it's like to be younger. And what is it like? What was it like for me when I was that age? What is it like for this kid right in front of me right now? These feelings are not fake, right? Now, maybe there's some exaggerated feeling. Maybe there's something that needs to be confronted. Certainly, I think that's on the table. Let's confront things that need to be confronted. But let's not be the kind of apathetic parents who see a kid who's struggling and just get kind of tired of it. And so we're dismissive about it.
We all want relationships with our teenagers, but no one wants a relationship with someone who invalidates how you feel or dismisses how you feel. Like, I don't want my friends to be like, that's dumb, Cassie. Why do you care about that? Why are you anxious about that?
Right.
I want them to have compassion and empathy. And so likewise, if we want to build relationships with our kids, if we want them to trust us with their hard days, then we need to care. We need to show them that we can listen and care and that we're not going to dismiss it. I find that listening to some Olivia Rodrigo and Taylor Swift will help take me back to being 15 years old.
Is that right?
And just like, oh my goodness, I remember feeling this way at 15 and it was so dramatic. and it felt like the world was ending because this boy didn't like me. You know, like music will transport you back, I feel like, to feeling that way. And it can stir up in my own heart, like, oh man, that's hard. I remember how hard that was.
Cassie, help us understand what churches maybe who are trying to think about ministering to kids at this age, what are the kind of things that they should be focusing on? If they're a church worker, or if I'm a parent trying to understand, like, what is my church doing to help me out or to disciple, what should a church be focused on?
I mean, I think trust is huge. So I think if you're a church worker, if you're on staff and you're like thinking about this age group, you need to have the highest quality adults in your church serving. So like, this is so important because, like you said, this is the age kids are getting dropped off for longer periods of time. They're maybe going to overnight camp. So it's a vulnerable age, and they're old enough to advocate for themselves, and hopefully they're being taught, boundaries and what to say. But because there's so much trust required for that relationship and for relationships outside of the family to grow. Was it Champ that we had on here?
Chap Clark?
Chap Clark. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Chap.
I call him Champ. Yeah.
He is a champion. Chap, when he was saying that we want 5 other adults outside of the parental. And so that means ideally those adults are believers. It'd be great if they're in your covenant community of a local church. And so trust is such a big piece of that. And so as, a church worker, you get to help provide those 5 relationships for these families through other adults in your ministry or even other parents in your ministries. And so I think relationships are huge. Trust is huge. I think starting to help kids think about their faith critically. And there's some great content out there. We've got Rebecca McLaughlin, right?
Yep. McLaughlin.
Who wrote the 10 questions every teen should ask about Christianity. And so there's some good apologetics and stuff like that out there, but having them start to think critically about their faith and what their parents would teach them, what the church teaches them, will just equip them for when their unbelieving friends are asking them and challenging their faith at school, So I think that's a really important thing at this age, and kind of just helping them, while they're even underneath the roof and authority of their homes, start to kind of build up their own framework for theology and practicing theology in their personal life.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I help a lot of older people, older than teenagers, process right now is some of the ways churches didn't handle this season well. I talked to a lot of people who feel like almost like they were lied to about drugs, alcohol, and sex by the church. That the church painted it as something that if you try it, it will like turn you into a pillar of salt. And then when they experimented with drugs or alcoholic sex, they're like, well, no, I love it. It's actually super fun. And so instead of maybe painting a picture of why these things could be beautiful, churches at this stage just kind of try to scare kids away from doing something they shouldn't. And so we end up having talks about a toxic purity culture. And that in this stage, a lot of churches, well, it's great to focus on sexual purity. I'm all for that. Like, let's talk about sexual purity. Let's talk about God's sexual ethic. But to talk about sex as if it's something dirty has really messed up a lot of people's perspective. And Chelsea and I are on a regular kind of helping people deprogram maybe from some of the things that they heard growing up from well-intentioned adults and well-intentioned churches. Chelsea, anything on kind of that toxic purity culture we see a lot of?
Oh, I was going to say about this is an age group where churches find it tempting to lure kids in with like a coolness ministry, right? And to say, no, like secular stuff's not cool. Sex and drugs aren't cool. You know what's cool? Jesus is cool. And when we're trying to do this little bait and switch to say, no, trust us, there's going to be so much pizza and so much laser tag, like it's going to be super cool. And some other cool kids from your school are coming, and so it'll be super cool. What we're actually saying is you can still worship the God you already did, which was coolness, right? Which was worldliness or popularity, acceptance, whatever word you want to use there. They're just trying to say Jesus is the means to go get that thing that you love most. Instead of saying Jesus is a higher good. He is the highest good. He is better. He is your greatest prize. He is your greatest treasure. Instead, they're saying, hey, kids, cool kids, we know what you treasure. You can get it through Jesus. So come over here. We're going to play paintball. It's going to be sick. It's going to be so lit. And then maybe in the end, you won't walk away from the church. And I'm telling you, I think they will.
Man, you could preach that right there. Like I wholeheartedly agree. And we can talk about this more maybe in our next week episode when we talk about teens. But when we try to offer them cool Jesus and to be Christian is cool. and that Christianity is about like having a celebrity culture or having a celebrity friend or being a celebrity in your local school. There's not a scripture that's going to tell you, hey, Jesus is cooler than the world. There's not a scripture that's going to say, hey, if you follow Jesus, you'll be more accepted by the world. You have acceptance in Christ, and that fulfills that need. Therefore, when you are rejected by this world the same way he was, we still follow him regardless of the loss of our worldly reputation. And what we're offering kids at any age is an opportunity to come and die, right? To come and deny themselves, die to themselves, and follow Christ. And it feels like a lot of churches at this stage are offering a chance to come and live it up.
Yeah.
And I'm not against paintball. I'm not against bowling nights. I'm not against any of that. But you guys know my philosophy of student ministry. I'll probably say this again in the next episode. Student ministry at a church that is worth its salt is not built on trying to find kids the funnest time and the coolest peers. It's not about getting them around other kids their age, although that is a great side effect of having these kids together, is maybe they'd make friends who also follow Jesus. Student ministry or kids ministry, middle school ministry, whatever you want to call this stage, is about getting your kids around other adults who will disciple them in your church.
Yeah.
It's not about finding like, hey, good 12 to 14-year-old babysitters from your church who can be around and will monitor pizza consumption and will keep kids behaving and will go to camps and they'll just kind of make sure the kids don't prank too much. It's about discipling these kids alongside their parents. Parents, hopefully the largest, loudest voice in a kid's life about how to follow Jesus, but come alongside those parents. That's what this student ministry is about. And so, yeah, that kind of culture of cool that we build, I'm against that too.
Yeah, there may be an exceptionally mature kid at student ministry, but by and large is an insane thought that parents think if my kid hangs out with these church kids, it will be great and they will become morally excellent. That is not true. Most of these kids are not believers. If they are, they're not mature believers. They do not have deep roots here. They need these adults to disciple them. So Adam and I, we do not care if student ministry is fun. I hope it is for the sake of everybody, I guess, but I do not care if it's fun. We care if our kids get discipled.
Yeah, Maven's leaders asked at the beginning of the year, it's her first year in our student ministry, but they're like, what are you kind of hoping from us? And I just was like, one of them is a woman in her 40s, she's single, and then one is a late 20s young mom. She's got 2 kids. And I just like, I don't need either of you to try and be something you're not. Like what I want Maven to see is a picture of a single woman who loves the Lord and is satisfied and is chasing and living a life for Jesus, and a young working mom who loves Jesus, loves her husband, loves her kids. Like, that those 2 examples are so beautiful for her to start receiving from at the age of 11. They're 2 faithful ways in life for her,
That's awesome.
that are displayed. And I just think it's so good. But I get nervous for these youth leaders that they're going to feel like they have to know the cool words and the cool music. I'm like, no. That's not what, that's not what we need.
No, that's not how churches hire that way too. And it drives me bananas.
Yeah,
Like we need a younger, cooler person to do this. You don't.
I have a question about like churches. So do you guys we see at our church, which this is a little off script, sorry. This is the age where parents kids start to really care what youth group to go to. So
big time.
We'll have families that are like, well, my kids, their friends at school actually go to this church.
Yep.
So our whole family are going to maybe start going to this church because either they don't want to fight their kid on coming to our church. The thing is, there's a lot of really wonderful churches in Dallas that have faithful ministries. So it's not a complaint about our churches, but it is just so hard because it's like, well, what if all the kids in your 3rd kid's grade goes to a different church, one that would even have you change your ecclesiology,
Sure.
And so it's just so interesting to me because this is the stage where you feel like as parents, to get your kid to be excited about church, you're going to have to compromise maybe what you feel convictionally about the local church.
Totally.
To go. And so I would love for you to speak. I know that y'all have probably experienced that too, because we're not far from each other.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of opinions about this. I probably
Any you
more
want on
so
air?
than I should share. Yeah. But I think this is a stage in particular, but it's not uncommon to make a decision based on what you're talking about. And I want to say there are faithful ways to make decisions about where you go to church and who you know and who your kids know and whether or not you want to fight them to go to church. I get all those things. And I think there's a faithful way to explore those questions. However, if critical mass of your kid's best friends is how you determine where you go to church, you are setting up your kid as a king in your household where I don't think they should be king. I think it can be a contributing factor for sure. But if you say like, hey, I want to take you where your buddies go, or I want to take you where your friends are, then you're saying we're going to church based on what you like. And I'm not part of a church because of what my heart wants. What my heart wants can be twisted, right? Now, do I want kids who are going to our church's student ministry to love it? Yes. And if a family's coming to our student ministry because there's a critical mass of their friends at our church, so I tell them, no, don't come here. No, I don't do that. I'll be honest, like I'm not like calling it out every time I see it. But there is something about it that is indicative of the fact that we are treating churches as if they are apartment complexes with amenities, and we'll select the one that we like based on how big the pool is, or the workout center, or whether I'm on the first floor or the third floor, how easy it is to park or not park there. These are the kind of things that, at least in Dallas, people determine their church by these things. I think in other cultures or in places where there's more desperation to find people who are like-minded, this doesn't exist as much. But certainly in Dallas, what people are looking for is critical mass. Yeah. Where's the critical mass of people that are like me? Or one of the other cultural values right now that people like to trump the people like me is, where's the place with critical mass of diversity that this church does not have? I need to go find some place that has a lot of people who aren't like me. And again, it's chasing something that'll make me feel a certain way about where I go to church. And I don't want to chase something that, again, just makes me feel like, oh, this is right and good because this is where my buddies are. If you are the last Lutheran, the last Episcopalian in your friend group, stick with it. Stay with your local church. If you are the last Baptist in your friend group, if your kid is the last Baptist in his friend group, you don't have to take him out of your church. I promise you, it's not going to necessarily, I'm not saying every church you need to stay with, but we leave churches so easily right now. And people float from church to church so easily right now over almost nothing. And this is certainly one prime example where families will go, Cassie, you've seen this too. Families will even move across the city because of not necessarily school choice. It's because, what it means for our kids' sports chances, what it means for their recreational activities, what it means for friendships. And I think community is super, super important. Yeah. But I think if the Lord has given you a mission to a place, and we started to think about ourselves more like missionaries who are trained in being discipled, and we thought about our churches as places to grow instead of as places to be served, then it would change a lot of this discussion.
Well, and this is the age we invite those kids into it. Yeah. Like, hey, love this community with us. Love this church with us.
Like I've heard parents explaining that, student ministry is difficult because there's one kid that is hard for their kid to be around. And I'm going, yeah, aren't you in a home group? Don't you have somebody in your home group like that? Like this
workplace,
or your workplace.
This is going to go on till Christ returns. Like, this is the body. Is that, somebody's an eye and somebody's an ear, and we don't always get along that great, or it doesn't seem great to us. We love to surround ourselves with people who are like us, that we find easy to be around. So this is a time, I think, to teach our kids about the body of Christ and about community, and that we don't always quit going just because someone bothers us. That's not the nature of this organization. It's not a country club. It's not like that. And so when we choose our church based on the kids' preferences, or what's trending right now, again, that conversation we were just having that said we can feel different. It's okay. Yeah. We don't always have to feel different for the sake of it. But if we say, like, we're going to uproot ourselves from a place where we've invested in it, we're connected, but we're going to uproot it because I would hate for you to feel weird. Also, what a blissed existence if the only way your kid is feeling weird or other than is because they don't go to the right Christian church. Right. I think we need more exposure here, but anyways.
Sorry, rabbit trail. That's my bad.
No, it's fine. I think there's a lot. What you're touching on is preferences, and when it comes to this age, our kids are developing preferences, and then when it comes to church stuff, a lot of our parents will kind of bow to a kid's preference because it makes it easier, or we really can be, making a holy decision and say it delights my child to be part of this student ministry, and I want to encourage that. Yeah. That's great. I just want to make sure our hearts are right, our motivations are right. Yeah. And, we certainly know a lot of families who go to one church on Sundays and a different church for student ministry. That's very, very common in Dallas. And I get it. You want your kid with this peer or that peer. I really do get it. I just want to check our hearts and say, are we doing something that's trending? Are we putting our kid on a throne where actually they're missing out on Christ being in charge? Speaking of that, segueing to something related, Chelsea, is there anything in the church, anything that adult believers do that you would say, hey, not yet for this age group? Or when it comes to serving, studying the Bible, praying, being in worship, is there anything in this age group that you would say, oh, you know what, we need to wait on? Or is this like, hey, no holds barred, let's go?
I think there's areas in the church where people serving, like Cassie was saying, need to be mature in their faith, need to have certain qualifications. And then there's certain areas in the church where that's not the hugest deal, that I think we can invite an adolescent who is a professing Christian, and they may not have this great depth of faith, but they can serve the church. So I think about, simple things. If your church has a meal or some function, can the kid hold doors open? Can they scoop food onto someone's plate? Can they do things like that? Right now our church is in a time where we have to do a lot of setup and takedown because of stuff going on in our building. And so they asked teams of people to sign up to help before service and after service. And a lot of our adolescent men signed up to be guys that can stack chairs and move the chairs out. That's a way that they can serve. We've signed Oscar up for men's Bible study. He's about to be 13. I think men's Bible study is a place that he should be welcome. There may be people less mature in their faith than him or more mature, and I think he has a spot there, in my opinion. I don't know that every family sees it that way, and really sees their adolescent boy as a little boy. Yeah. But I want to challenge Oscar. And he did say, I think it'll be weird to be in a circle of men. They're going to talk about their jobs and stuff. And I said, yeah, pay attention.
Exactly.
I was like, yeah, they are.
Which ones you don't want to do.
I was like, your job is to go to school. You can talk about that. And they've all been there. So they're going to understand.
That's so good.
And he's like, okay, whatever.
Is it at 6 a.m.?
Is it 6:30 a.m.?
But we have to be there to greet, so we'll be there early.
Oh yeah, Adam signed him up for the greeting team.
Love that.
I said I could never get anywhere on time, much less early, so I could never sign up to greet. But
I will have already been up for an hour. I would have already been dancing around the house. But yeah, what you're touching on, I think, is so good, because this is one of the things that sets our family apart, even within our own church right now. And I hope we lead in this. And this is not to exploit, nor is it to say look at us, we're doing awesome. But when our kid when they hit 6th grade at our church, there's no longer kind of kids ministry on Sundays. So of course they're worshiping with us on Sunday morning, full time, all the time. And we love it. We're not saying, hey, go find your friends, or what service do you want to go to? It's like, no, you're worshiping with mom and dad. We love that. Our family want it to be normal. When it's time to serve, Chelsea has our 6th grader serving in kids ministry check-in. So he's helping check-in families on Sunday morning. He's not mature enough to lead in a classroom, but they do check-in together.
He's in 7th grade.
I'm sorry, 7th grade. Golly. You'd think I'd be a better dad by now. 7th grader. Or, men's Bible study. He's going to men's Bible study with us. Why? Is there an age restriction on when my son can start studying the Bible with a group of men? There's not. Prayer night. There's a lot of families that would say, well, I've got these kids now, and there's not kids ministry for my kids on prayer night, and they don't know how to pray. I'm like, how do you think your kid will learn to pray?
Yeah.
If you're looking at a 7th grader and going, well, he's not comfortable praying. Well, how will you get him comfortable praying?
Yeah.
If you're not willing to say, you know what, my church has a whole night that's dedicated to prayer. Let's go there together. Let's pray together. Who's going to teach him? Is he going to learn at home by skipping things like this? If you go, my son's not comfortable reading the Bible with adults. How do you think they'll get comfortable reading the Bible with adults? We have all these kids leaving the church after high school. And it's like, well, you never invited them to be part of the church when they were in high school.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that after high school.
Go off, Adam. Go off.
I'm about to go. I've already gone off 2 or 3 times during this whole
time. Well, tonight we had student ministry. When I go there, I see what looks like maybe 60 adolescent boys. When we're at prayer night, I see 5 adolescent boys. Even though I know they pray as student ministry. I know they're being trained up in that, but for some reason, there's this silent exclusion. No one's saying they can't come, and yet there's this weird assumption that they shouldn't or something. No. I have no idea.
But we would baptize a kid much younger than that.
Right.
And then lower expectations for them participating in the body of Christ. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that I just want to be careful about. I'm not saying every kid is ready for everything, but I'm looking at our kids and saying, I want to push them forward, not hold them back when it comes to faith formation. So I want to press into, like we talked about at the beginning, how do they express their faith in kind of moral dilemmas? How do they handle those situations? I want to train them up in how it's become very normal for Oscar to be at prayer night with us and pray out loud with his mom and dad. It's become very normal for him to open his own Bible and read it on his own or read it with us. And while the Lord may not grant him the kind of strong faith that we hope for, he's not going to be found wanting for opportunities to have seen it grown in this age and stage. Anyway, Cassie, let's end with this. When you think about the stage, think about milestones. We talked about a lot of great opportunities. We talked about a lot of temptations and dangers. But what are some of the milestones during the stage that a kid might hit?
Well, I think this is a big from boyhood to manhood and girlhood to womanhood. So as we're talking about physical changes that are happening in their life, emotional changes, I think we have the opportunity to really dignify those by saying like, hey, this isn't just something happening to little girl Maven or little boy Oscar. Like, this is you becoming a man. This is you becoming a woman. And so this is how expectations around the house are going to change within relationship to mom and son, or mom and daughter, dad and daughter, dad and son. So I really think getting strategic around a milestone for womanhood and manhood in your home is important. Middle school is probably a big milestone. I mean, a lot of people have opinions and thoughts about middle school and experience, and really important experiences in middle school that still, I mean, when I do member affirmations or volunteer interviews, a lot of them they're saying something about middle school that they had an experience, or they learned to do something, or they got caught up in sin. So even just middle school in and of itself, I think starting it is kind of recognizing this is a milestone. You're entering into a new stage of life. It might be baptism if your kid hasn't had a public profession of faith. That might be a common milestone at this stage. First overnight camp could be a common milestone at this age.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm missing something, but
no,
talk about what y'all did with Oscar.
I think we're going to do something for 13, which is right around the corner.
Yeah, you're coming up in just a couple months, and that's pretty common right now in kind of our stream of Christianity. But a lot of men that have read John Tyson's Primal Path are thinking about how at 13 we kick off kind of a stage of really serious and intense discipleship. I loved our interview with John Tyson, where he was meeting with his son from 13 to 18 every weekday morning to talk about how they're going to follow Christ. And when we asked him, what would you do different now that you're through that stage, Chelsea, what did he say?
He said, I wish I would have been more intense.
Yeah, he said, I wish I would have done more. And yet again, one of his points that I think is so apt, we would do so much for football. We would do so much for baseball. We would do so much for academic success. And yet when it comes to discipling our kids in this stage, we would almost like take a back seat and just see what the Lord does, as if he's called us to some kind of passivity in our kids' spiritual development. So this is an age of opportunity to jump in. If you haven't read that book, Primal Path, Man or Woman, read it. I hope it inspires you to think about how you
He has the new one for daughters, the resilient
he'll have a
daughter.
new one for daughters. I hope we get to have him on to talk about it. We'll reach out to him soon and we'll see if we can make that happen maybe next season. But there's a lot to be done in this season, and it is intimidating. I get it. It can be exhausting. And somebody listening right now is going, you don't know how hard my family is. Must be nice to be yours. Listen, that is every kid and every family. But I'd like to think that what delights us about what our kids are seeing in their pursuit of the Lord right now, and what we're seeing in their pursuit of the Lord right now, is come from God blessing the efforts that we're putting in. And I hope that's the case. This is not always easy for us. I'll tell you that. Chelsea, do we have some hard days?
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, sometimes. Yeah, we call them weekdays and weekends. Those are the hardest. But then we do have a lot of great days. But yeah, there are hard days, We're far from perfect parents, and we're parenting kids that we're trying to parent them differently than a lot of the ways the world does. And so, and I can understand, but the Lord gives us strength to keep going. Our burden is light when Jesus is the one doing the heavy lifting.
That's right.
Well, thanks for listening, friends. If you think it's as important as we do to disciple our families, please help us out by giving us a great review wherever you listen to podcasts. Visit one of our sponsors and share this episode with one of your friends. And if you want to keep up with us or join the conversation, you can find us at familydiscipleship.com or follow the Family Discipleship Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. We love you, listeners, and we will see you next week.